पाइए। जोड़ी जिम्मेदार जो प्लान करे परिवार।
A very good morning, just past 10 by the clock. This is your window where we bring you the latest from the world of politics, business, sports and entertainment. I'm Anil Thomas. Let's get started over the next 60 minutes with the top stories that we are tracking at the top of this hour. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Foreign Secretary of UK on the sidelines of the UNGA session, urges early resolution of quarantine issue in mutual interest. External Affairs Minister also meets foreign ministers of Norway and Iraq. US President Joe Biden says strong partnership with the UN more important now than ever. Meets with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres ahead of the UN General Assembly, where he will address the UN for the first time as president. US to relax travel restrictions for vaccinated foreign air travelers from 33 countries, including China, India, Brazil, in November. In Canada, votes are being counted after a snap election called by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Canadian media project his Liberal Party will form a minority government. 81 crore 85 lakh vaccine doses administered so far under the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination drive. Primary schools reopen in Uttarakhand from today. Well, those are the headlines at the top of this hour. Now for the stories in detail with regards to the Prime Minister's visit. And before that, the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, reached New York for the UNGA High Level Week and related engagements last night. He began his UNGA meetings with Foreign Minister of Norway, Ein Eriksen. Both the leaders appreciated working together in the Security Council. A comprehensive discussion on Afghanistan also took place between the two leaders. At the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar stressed that it is important for international community to take a unified approach. External Affairs Minister also had a cordial meeting with the Foreign Minister of Iraq, Saud Hussain. Two sides discussed historical ties, economic, energy and development cooperation linkages. They also exchanged views on regional and global issues. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met new UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. Both sides discussed the progress of the Roadmap 2030, while the External Affairs Minister appreciated a contribution on the trade side. They also exchanged views on developments in Afghanistan and the Indo-Pacific region. At the meeting, India urged early resolution of quarantine issue in mutual interest. Well, let's now listen into India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador T.S. Tirumurthy, what he said about India's UNGA agenda. India will use its voice at the high-level United Nations General Assembly to forcefully take up global issues such as terrorism, climate change, equitable and affordable vaccines or access to vaccines, Indo-Pacific and UN reforms. Tirumurthy said, the COVID-19 pandemic and developments in Afghanistan are expected to dominate the 76th UNGA session.
This UNGA is an important occasion for India as well, for many reasons. There is an expectation that India, as the leading voice of the developing world, as well as a member of the UN Security Council, will use its voice to take up global issues such as climate change, sustainable development goals, equitable and affordable access to vaccines, poverty eradication and economic recovery, women's empowerment and their participation in governance structures, terrorism, peacekeeping and peace building, UN Security Council reforms, etc. And we have done so before, and we will continue to do so.
Well, he added that India will ensure vaccine equity of access worldwide. India will also ensure the supply of vaccines to the countries still aloof from it.
Many developing countries which have not had adequate access to the vaccines are naturally extremely concerned about what are we going to do next. And in this, you are aware that India has been at the forefront in fighting against the pandemic, be it through our national efforts or through multilateral and plurilateral cooperation. And we will definitely reinforce the several initiatives which we have taken to ensure vaccine equity and also to ensure access and availability of vaccines for developing countries which have not yet been brought into the ambit of vaccine distribution. And as you are already aware again, Prime Minister has also made available our CoWIN digital platform as a global good to the international community. I think these are some of the highlights which we will be taking up with the international community when it comes up in the UNGA.
Well, he added that apart from the COVID-19 pandemic and its humanitarian impact, other issues likely to dominate the high-level segment of the UNGA session include terrorism and related issues such as climate change, ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and Africa, and the recent developments in Afghanistan and UN Security Council reforms.
Issues relating to Afghanistan and certainly issues relating to terrorism will be extremely important. Our Prime Minister has already made our stand very clear in his recent address to the SCO summit last week. And in his statement, the Prime Minister dealt with some very specific issues relating to non-inclusive, non-negotiated transition of power. He emphasized the need for representation of all sections, including women and minorities, the impact of fundamentalism and instability on terrorism and extremist ideologies. India has always been at the forefront to push for a joint and collective effort to combat terrorism. We will stop all attempts to weaken the collective resolve of the member states to fight terrorism or to provide justification for terror.
Well, our correspondent there on Ground Zero, Gautam Roy, sent us this report from Washington. Let's listen in.
Come 24th of September, the eyes of the world will be trained on the White House because this is where the leaders of the Quad will be meeting for the first time in person, because that is what is on the agenda on that particular date. The Quad has already taken major steps forward as far as cooperation amongst the four members are concerned. We saw in the last meeting that has taken place virtually that Quad had come up with 3 working groups. One, of course, on vaccines, where India is playing a major part, where providing vaccines to the world is concerned. Then, of course, there's climate change. We will see how that is taken forward in terms of addressing the entire Paris Agreement goals that are still being worked upon. India is a huge contributor on that front as well. Already, the only G20 country that is meeting all its commitments that are declared in terms of keeping temperatures down to 2 degrees Celsius or lesser. And of course, there's new and emerging technologies. It's also called critical technologies. There's another working group on that. What more can be done on those fronts? How can Quad further widen its ambit? What else it can talk about? Because there are, of course, many areas that the Quad is concerned with. First of all, of course, there's peace and security in the Indo-Pacific. There is connectivity. There is infrastructure. There's education. And there's an overhanging concern about what has happened in Afghanistan as well. That's a fresh development. The Quad leaders are likely to deliberate about that as well. And above all, it's the interest of everyone. The vision that India had given, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had given of Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region, is something that will be central. Keeping ASEAN at the center of Quad is also something that has been always talked about at the level of the leaders. And that is what we will see perhaps progress being made on even further. Even in bilateral talks, all these issues will figure out, because these nations have been working on so many facets of their relationships for all these years, and it's building a matrix of cooperation and coordination that perhaps will be benefit for the entire world. This is Gautam Roy in Washington, D.C. for DD India.
Well, Joe Biden will deliver his first speech as the president during the high-level debate at the 76th UN General Assembly today. Before embarking, Joe Biden said he looked forward to strengthening U.S. global partnership, working with allies to tackle their shared challenges and making clear that America is back. After reaching New York, Joe Biden met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The meeting came after Guterres urged the US and China to repair their relationship. Both Biden and Guterres met at a time when the US faces the fallout from France over a submarine deal the US made with Australia and the United Kingdom, and as the US faces international criticism over the handling of the exit from Afghanistan. Biden said he and the Secretary General shared a strong commitment to the principle of human freedom and human dignity on which the UN was founded. He added that a strong partnership with the UN is more important than ever and that no one country can solve key problems alone. Over 100 world leaders will converge at the 76th United Nations General Assembly session and discuss issues including terrorism, climate change, equitable and affordable access to vaccine, and Afghanistan crisis. The session began at the headquarters in New York on Monday and will continue till the 27th of September. The theme for this year's general debate is building resilience through hope to recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people, and revitalize the United Nations. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. At the meeting of world leaders in New York, Boris Johnson urged leaders of the world's major economies, including the US, to deliver on their commitment towards a $100 billion per year climate fund. With less than 6 weeks to go before a UN climate summit, Boris Johnson and the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres hosted a roundtable of world leaders on Monday to address major gaps on emission targets and climate finance. Boris Johnson also met with the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, on the sidelines of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Besides UNGA sessions, another high-level meeting to look forward to this week is the Quad Summit. The US President will also be conducting the first in-person Quad Summit at the White House with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Ahead of the summit, India has termed the Quad framework as diverse and constructive. This was stated by Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla at the 6th JP Morgan Indian Investor Summit on Monday evening. He added that India has clearly told China that peace in the border areas is essential for developing bilateral ties in the wake of Chinese attempts to unilaterally alter the status quo on the line of actual control over the past year. The first ever summit of the leaders of the Quadrilateral Framework, or Quad, took place virtually on March 12th earlier this year.
A challenge to Afghanistan to a post-COVID world. Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla addressed the 6th JP Morgan India Investors Summit on the theme India's Foreign Policy and its Strategic Imperative, the Way Forward. Speaking on the recent geopolitical challenges in the immediate neighborhood of Afghanistan and with China on India's eastern borders, Harsh Shringla stated, Chinese attempts over the last year to unilaterally alter the status quo in Ladakh have seriously disturbed peace and tranquility in the border areas. These acts are in violation of our bilateral agreements and have inevitably impacted other aspects of the bilateral relationship. We have made it clear to the Chinese side that peace and tranquility in the border areas is essential for development of our relationship. Development of India-China relationship can only be based on three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity and mutual interests. On the issue of Afghanistan, he said, as an immediate neighbor, India is concerned about the recent changes within Afghanistan and their implications for India and the region. Though the immediate attention was on the evacuation of Indian nationals from Afghanistan, India is also monitoring the developments related to humanitarian needs of Afghanistan. India, during its presidency of the UN Security Council in August 2021, oversaw 3 meetings to discuss the situation in Afghanistan. The UNSC Resolution 2593 was adopted, which comprehensively addressed the main pending issues relating to Afghanistan. The resolution demands that Afghan territory not be used for sheltering, training, planning or financing terrorist acts, and specifically refers to terrorist individuals proscribed by the UN Security Council, including the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Harshringa highlighted India's commitment to multilateral and plurilateral solutions in the context of the Quad Summit as well as other recent engagements. He said India will participate in the first in-person Quad Summit in the US at the invitation of President Joe Biden. The agenda of cooperation under the Quad framework is constructive and diverse. The 4 Quad countries are engaged on issues of connectivity and infrastructure, emerging technologies, climate action, education, and most important of all, COVID-19 responses, which include vaccine collaboration and resilient and reliable supply chains. Spelling out the pillars of Indian diplomacy, Shringla said that India seeks to be Atmanirbhar. Prime Minister Modi's vision for globalization stresses on collective well-being of humankind and having multilateral fora focus on promoting the shared interests of humanity. India places, in this context, its neighborhood first, act east and think west policies. Harshringla also listed the mega trends the country is contending with, including a rebalancing in which global activity is moving towards Asia, the rise of China, the pressure on international systems, the vulnerability of global supply and value chains, emerging technologies, and a battle between schools of thought. DD India.
Well, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday in New Delhi. The meeting reviewed progress on various ongoing bilateral initiatives, including those taken under the aegis of the Strategic Partnership Council established between both countries. Prime Minister expressed India's keenness to see greater investment from Saudi Arabia, including in key sectors like energy, IT and defense manufacturing. The meeting also allowed exchange of perspectives on regional developments, including the situation in Afghanistan. Prime Minister conveyed his special thanks and appreciation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for looking after the welfare of the Indian diaspora during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister also conveyed his warm greetings and regards to His Majesty the King and His Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh spoke to US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin over the phone on Monday. Both the leaders discussed bilateral and regional matters, including developments in Afghanistan. They discussed defense cooperation and look forward to working closely. The Defense Minister and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin also exchanged views about combating terrorism in the region. Both sides appreciated the mutual cooperation in the recent evacuation operation in Afghanistan and agreed to remain in regular contact in view of the evolving situation. Shifting focus, the United Nations Secretary General held a meeting of world leaders, after which he called for help from all countries to take action against climate change. With less than 6 weeks to go before the world leaders convene for a major climate summit in Glasgow, the UN chief asked for solidarity to avert a climate catastrophe. The UN chief and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson held a roundtable of world leaders with discussions aimed to ensure a successful outcome at the UN Climate Conference being held from the 31st of October to the 12th of November this year in Glasgow.
The bottom line is that we need decisive action now around net zero commitments from all countries and the private sector. We need decisive action now to avert climate catastrophe. I'm fully ready to support Prime Minister Johnson and his team in their constant efforts to bring the world back on track. Will the developed world finally materialize the $100 billion of annual support to developing countries, and if possible more? We are not yet there. This is an area where I'm hopeful we will be able to make serious progress in COP in Glasgow.
Well, after the leaders' roundtable on climate action, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that the upcoming 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26, will be a turning point for the world. Boris Johnson said the developing world is bearing the brunt of catastrophic climate change, and it is the developed world that over 200 years has put the carbon in the atmosphere. He added that it is up to the developed world to help them.
COP26 is a turning point for the world, and it's the moment when we have to grow up and take our responsibility. It is the developing world that is bearing the brunt of catastrophic climate change in the form of hurricanes and fires and floods and the real long-term economic damage that they face. And yet it's the developed world that over 200 years has put the carbon in the atmosphere that is causing this acceleration of climate change. And so it really is up to us to help them.
Well, in Canada, as counting proceeds for the 44th federal elections, incumbent Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is projected to win. But with about 1 million voters sending in the 2021 ballots by mail, Canadians may have to wait longer than usual to find out who will form the next government. Prime Minister Trudeau is expected to speak any time now. He had called for an early election in a bid to capitalize on the Liberals' handling of the pandemic and swing to a majority. Meanwhile, there is news coming in that the main opposition party, that's the Conservative Party's leader, Erin O'Toole, the leader of Canada's major opposition party, has conceded defeat in this particular election. So clearly it's the Liberals that are back in power, but can Liberals get that 170 magic mark is what we need to look at, because in Canada 170 is that magic mark to form the government. As the first person past the post gets the target. So clearly at this point of time, as we speak, Justin Trudeau here expected to win, but can he get a majority there in the lower Senate is what we need to look at. 338 members there, 170 the magic number that one needs to cross that mark to win the elections. He had 155 the last time when he fought the elections. This time around, can he get or close that cross that halfway mark is something that we would look forward to, but all polls clearly indicate that he is likely to win, but not likely to cross that magic mark of 170 or get a majority in the lower house. Staying with elections, but shifting from Canada to Russia, where the mandate is very clear. Russian President Vladimir Putin his party has won a parliamentary majority in Russian elections amid allegations of election fraud. With almost all of the votes counted, the United Russia Party has won nearly 50% of the vote, marking a slight drop in support from the previous election.
Russia's ruling United Russia Party, which supports President Vladimir Putin, retained its parliamentary majority in a three-day parliamentary election. This despite opponents alleging widespread fraud. The Central Election Commission said United Russia had won nearly 50% of the vote, with its nearest rival, the Communist Party, at just under 20%. Members and supporters of the ruling party gathered late on Sunday to celebrate victory. Moscow's mayor thanked and congratulated those who voted for United Russia.
Congratulations, big congratulations. Thank you very much to everyone who took part in these elections. Thanks to those who voted for United Russia.
Although it is an emphatic win for the ruling party, it is a weaker performance compared to the last time a parliamentary election was held in 2016, when the United Russia Party won just over 54% of the vote. Kremlin critics who alleged large-scale vote rigging termed the election a sham.
Why they did not publish result if it is an online voting? It must appear as soon as everybody votes, so there might be falsifications.
The United Russia Party faced a slump in its popularity due to some allegations of corruption. The victory, however, is a proof of widespread support for Putin, who has been in power as either president or prime minister since 1999 and remains a popular figure with many Russians who credit him with standing up to the West and restoring national pride. DD India.
Well, lava flowing from Spain's Canary Islands' first volcanic eruptions in 50 years has forced the evacuation of 5,500 people and destroyed around 100 houses. But the streams were advancing slower than originally predicted. An official said that the flow of molten rock will not reach the Atlantic Ocean on Monday evening as earlier estimated. Experts say that if and when it does, it could trigger more explosions and clouds of toxic gases. The volcano first erupted on the Spanish Canary island of La Palma on Sunday. Gran Canaria firefighters shared a video of the lava flow moving through a street. No fatalities or injuries have been reported. Well, let's now take a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the world on how the numbers are. As of now, 22 crores 97 lakh cases of COVID-19 or positive cases of COVID-19 being reported from across the world. 20 crores 64 lakh, that's the positive number when one looks at purely in terms of people who got the virus but have also managed to recover themselves. The biggest cause of concern, the death or the number of fatalities due to COVID-19 now passed the 47 lakh 11,000 mark. United States continues to remain the worst affected from the pandemic right from the beginning to date, with the Delta variant causing more havoc. United States of America having over 4 crore 30 lakh cases of COVID-19, with the death toll now surging past the 6 lakh 93,000 mark in the United States of America. The United States will ease travel restrictions for international visitors who are vaccinated against COVID-19 in November, including those from India, UK, Brazil, and most of European countries. According to the White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Jeff Zients, non-citizens visiting the United States will have to show proof of vaccination and a negative COVID test taken within 3 days of departure. The changes will take effect in early November, which the airline industry expects will spur holiday bookings. United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson has expressed happiness on the US decision to loosen pandemic-related restrictions for people travelling by air to the United States from 33 countries. Taking to Twitter, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, and I quote, "I am delighted that from November, POTUS is reinstating transatlantic travel so fully vaccinated UK nationals can visit the United States of America. It is a fantastic boost for business and trade, and great that family and friends on both sides of the pond can be reunited once again." United States Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield stopped by at a COVID-19 testing and vaccination van outside the United Nations on First Avenue on Monday. She said that she wanted to make sure that everyone saw that she got tested, and she doesn't see herself as an exception. She set an example, hoping that everyone takes the leadership or to do so that this event does not become a super spreader event. New York City has set up a van outside the United Nations for the week to supply free testing and free shots of the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Well, after the British government announced last week that the vaccine's offer would be extended to all 12 to 15-year-olds, teenagers at a school in English seaside town received COVID-19 vaccines on Monday. The chief medical officers recommended last Monday that children of the age group in Britain get a first shot of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Britain's Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization initially declined to recommend shots for all 12 to 15-year-olds, citing uncertainty over the long-term impact of their myocarditis. According to the health experts, the heart condition typically revolves around or resolves itself with mild short-term consequences. The second dose would not be offered to the age group until at least spring, as they would wait for more data from around the world. Well, time out for us to head into a short breather here on this program. On the other side, we've still got lots more international stories and taking a look at business and also sports stories on DD India. Stay with DD India and News on the Hour.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. We're still with international stories. Now moving forward with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro turning down British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's call to get AstraZeneca vaccines during a meeting in New York on Monday. The two leaders met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly gathering focused on boosting efforts to fight both climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. During the meeting attended by British and Brazilian officials, Bolsonaro quickly reacted on Johnson's call to get AstraZeneca vaccine, gesturing he does not agree with him and saying not yet. Last week, the far-right populist said he does not need the shot because he's already immune to COVID-19 after being infected with the virus. Well, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinta Ardern has eased coronavirus curbs slightly in the country's largest city of Auckland on Monday. She expressed confidence that there was no widespread regional transmission of the Delta variant. Ardern said that the Auckland restrictions will ensure that the Delta variant is stamped out as New Zealand sticks to its strategy of elimination of the virus. The city will stay at level 3 for at least 2 weeks. For the rest of the country, the level will remain at 2. New Zealand reported 22 new cases of COVID-19 on Monday, all in Auckland, which has been in a full level 4 lockdown since mid-August. Until then, the country had been largely virus-free. Its tally of infections stands at 4,082 with 27 deaths. Vietnam's capital, Hanoi, will further ease its coronavirus restrictions from this week. There has been a decline in new cases and the majority of its adult population partially vaccinated. Hanoi was busier last week after authorities removed dozens of checkpoints and allowed restaurants to order for takeaway services. So far, 94% of Hanoi's adult population of 5.75 million have received one shot of COVID-19 vaccine. Vietnam has reported 17,000 deaths and 4,64,326 patients have recovered. The total tally of infected persons stand at 6,95,744. Doctors in Thailand have been given the go-ahead to start giving COVID-19 booster shots under the skin rather than injecting them into muscles. Health officials have said it aims to strengthen immunity and stretch vaccine supplies. Health Minister of Thailand said that the method, which doctors began exploring last month, could be used at the discretion of medical professionals, providing it was supported by evidence. Phuket's population was among the first to be inoculated in Thailand as a prerequisite for the island of Phuket to reopen to vaccinated foreign tourists in July. Timisoara and Cluj are the first Romanian cities who will be mandatory for access to certain activities. The passes required at shows, cinemas, theatres, restaurants or terrace swimming pools, sports competitions and weddings. There will be certain restrictions related to the number of participants. According to the government's decision, the document is not required for children under 6 years of age. Theatres will receive audience at only 50% capacity and all people should present the green vaccination certificate at the entrance. In two municipalities from Trimbris County, Bara and Dumbrava, authorities are ready to close the schools since the infection rate surpassed 6 per 1,000 inhabitants. Austria will apply the so-called 3G rule from next winter season, which requires holiday makers to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Austria's tourism minister said those who want to enjoy a safe and carefree winter holiday in Austria should definitely get vaccinated. Also, a press sky under very strict rules will definitely be possible in the coming months. The rule is there won't be any restrictions for vaccinated and recovered people. Wearing a face mask in cable cars will remain compulsory for everyone. Austria's tourism minister remarks came days after a trial opened over an outbreak of coronavirus at a ski resort in early 2020, in which Austrian authorities stand accused of responding too slowly. The outbreak at that particular island was Austria's largest and helped spread the virus across Europe. Hundreds of Austrians were infected and thousands of foreign tourists say they were too, as the virus found a breeding ground in a crowded April ski bar at the resort. Well, time now for us to slip into another breather here on News on the Hour. We'll take a look at some more Indian stories when it comes to fight against COVID-19 and schools reopening. Also taking a look at the sports stories of the day on how sports has been overnight and the day ahead. Stay tuned with DD India and News on the Hour.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
نحن هنود
India.
माँ हिंदी हस्ती
Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. Let's now take a look at the numbers in India receding and schools slowly reopening with more and more people getting vaccinated. India's fight against COVID-19 continues with timely tracking, testing and treating. The country has been able to contain the spread of the virus. India's active caseload currently is less than 1% of the total cases and is currently at 0.92%, which is the lowest since March 2020. The country's active caseload is the lowest in 184 days and currently stands at 3,09,575. In the last 24 hours, the number of cases that have come positive is 26,115. The recovery rate currently stands since the highest since March 2020 at 97.75%. In the last 24 hours, 34,469 patients have recovered from COVID-19. So far, a total of 3,27,49,574 people have recovered from the virus across the country. The weekly positivity rate below 3% for the last 88 days, now standing at 2.08%. Daily positivity rate remains below 3% for the last 22 days and is now at 1.85%. More than 55 crore 50 lakh COVID-19 samples have been tested for COVID-19 so far across India. In a landmark achievement, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed the 81 crore milestone. Over 96,46,000 vaccination doses were administered on Monday. Out of over 81 crore 85 lakh vaccines, around 64.8% eligible population have received the first dose of COVID-19 vaccination, while around 22.2% eligible population have received the second dose of COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccination exercise is a tool to protect the most vulnerable population groups in the country from COVID-19 continues to be regularly reviewed and monitored at the highest level. Well, the export of COVID-19 vaccines from India is set to start from October after being stopped in April this year due to a sudden spike in COVID-19 cases and consequent rise in domestic demand for the vaccines in the country. Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya has announced that India will start delivering the COVID vaccine to other countries under its Vaccine Maitri program from the last quarter of the year after meeting its own domestic demand. It will prioritize the global vaccine sharing platform COVAX and neighboring countries first as supplies rise. The minister said that the monthly vaccine production in the country is expected to touch or reach nearly or over 300 million doses from next month.
अगले फोर्थ क्वार्टर में हम हमारी जरूरियात को पूरी करके अधिक प्रोडक्शन करेंगे। ये प्रोडक्शन के तहत हम वैक्सीन मैत्री को भी आगे बढ़ाएंगे। फोर्थ क्वार्टर में वैक्सीन मैत्री के तहत हम दुनिया को भी मदद करेंगे और कोवैक्स में भी हमारी जिम्मेवारी निभाएंगे।
Vaccine Math 3 is a humanitarian initiative of the government of India to provide COVID-19 vaccine to other countries in the world. Started in January this year, Bangladesh was among the first to receive 2 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccines from India on Jan 21st as a gift. Bangladesh has entered into an agreement for the commercial purchase of 30 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from the Serum Institute of India. India delivered close to 10.3 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine to Bangladesh till April, which included 7 million doses as commercial supplies and the rest of it as a gift from India. The largest vaccine maker of the world, India, has been able to treble its output of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine to 200 million doses compared to April. Well, a significant drop in numbers and vaccination increasing in India has now helped schools to reopen. And let's head to the hilly state of Uttarakhand, where the government has resumed offline classes for classes 1 to 5 in the state from today. As per a directive issued by the Department of School Education on Saturday, the classes will be held only for 3 hours a day and children will not be allowed to bring food to school. The option of online education will also be available to students of these classes. The school administration will have to ensure proper sanitization of the entire building or premises, including the classrooms, offices, libraries and washrooms. Students and staff members will have to mandatorily wear a face mask and maintain social distancing at all times. A nodal officer will be appointed in schools to ensure compliance with COVID-19 protocols and guidelines. Meanwhile, the Uttarakhand government is likely to further extend COVID-induced curfew in the state from today. Heading further up to Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, authorities have suspended internet in the Uri area of Baramulla district. According to sources, the security forces had observed infiltration attempts by Pakistan-based terrorists. In context of this, security forces have launched a combing operation in the area. Meanwhile, a firing incident occurred yesterday afternoon when an army patrol was in a village in Lasipura in Kupwara. The patrol was on a tactical break when two personnel entered into an argument, leading to 2 rounds being fired and injuring 1 soldier. The injured soldier was immediately evacuated to the nearest military hospital, where he was declared brought dead. Inquiry as per laid out procedures has been ordered and all necessary assistance is being provided to the local police in the incident. On to sports, England have officially pulled out their men's and women's team from their tour to Pakistan scheduled in October. The English Cricket Board's confirmation comes just 3 days after New Zealand abandoned their limited overs tour of Pakistan in the 11th hour, citing security concerns. An official ECB statement said that the mental and physical well-being of the players and support staff remain their highest priority, and this is even more critical given the times we are currently living in. It added that there are increasing concerns about travelling to the region and believe that going ahead will add further pressure to a playing group who have already coped with a long period of operating in restricted COVID environment. Well, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, that's BCCI, has announced a busy 2021-22 home season for the Indian men's cricket team starting from November 17. This is just 3 days after the final of the Men's T20 World Cup in Dubai. BCCI Secretary Jaishankar said India is set to host 4 tests, 3 ODIs and 14 T20s after the BCCI's APEC Council gave a green light to the schedule during its meeting on Monday. New Zealand and Sri Lanka will visit India for 2 tests and 3 T20s each in November 2021 and March 2022 respectively. West Indies will tour India for 3 ODIs and as many T20s in Feb 2022. In between the home season, India is scheduled to tour South Africa in December-January for the all-format series. Kanpur and Mumbai are the venues for the 2 test matches against New Zealand, while Bengaluru and Mohali will play host for the 2 test matches against Sri Lanka. Well, India has witnessed a new dawn in the sporting landscape, and fortunately in its 75th year of independence, which is being celebrated at Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav all across the country. In this glorious era, India has had witnessed its best ever medal haul in Tokyo Olympics and the Tokyo Paralympics. The government is also putting its best foot forward in bridging the gap between people and health through a fitness app via technology. Let's take a look at how India's 75th year of independence has become even more special with consistent support from Prime Minister and the government.
आज इस आयोजन में ओलंपिक में भारत की युवा पीढ़ी जिसने भारत का नाम रोशन किया है, ऐसे हमारे एथलीट्स, हमारे खिलाड़ी आज हमारे बीच में हैं। कुछ यहाँ हैं, कुछ सामने बैठे हैं। मैं आज देशवासियों को यहाँ मौजूद है उनको भी और हिंदुस्तान के कोने कोने में जो इस समारोह में मौजूद है उन सबको मैं कहता हूं कि हमारे खिलाड़ियों के सम्मान में तालियां बजा करके उनका सम्मान करें। भारत के खेलों का सम्मान, भारत की युवा पीढ़ी का सम्मान, भारत को गौरव दिलाने वाले युवाओं का सम्मान, देश, करोड़ों देशवासी आज तालियों की गड़गड़ाहट के साथ हमारे इन जवानों का, देश की युवा पीढ़ी का गौरव कर रहे हैं, सम्मान कर रहे हैं।
As India witnesses a new dawn in the field of sports, the festival Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, celebrating 75th year of independence in parallel, showcases the revolution India has witnessed in all the fields, and especially in sports, with consistent support from the government and various bodies. The country that witnessed the best ever medal haul in the Olympics as well as the Paralympic Games, coincidentally and fortunately in the 75th year of independence, is not only record-breaking but remarkable as well in many ways. Let's take a look at some of the highlights that India witnessed in its 75th year of independence. Best ever medal haul Olympics. India bagged a total of 7 medals in Tokyo Olympics, including 1 gold medal, 2 silver medal and 4 bronze medals. Best ever medal haul Paralympics. India bagged a total of 19 medals at Tokyo Paralympics, including 5 gold medals, 8 silver medals and 6 bronze medals. Fitness meets technology. The government launched Fit India mobile app that aims to keep people fit and healthy, encouraging masses from grassroots level. The government launched the Fit India quiz and encouraged students to participate in the quiz, supporting athletes via various schemes. Government schemes like TOPS and Mission Olympic Cell remain the backbone of athletes that helped them bag so many medals in Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics, encouraging athletes vis-a-vis mental fitness. The Prime Minister interacted with Olympics and Paralympics bound athletes before and after the event that helped them to upkeep their mental fitness. Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur also lauded India's brilliant performance at Tokyo Olympics and Tokyo Paralympics.
आपने आज के हिंदुस्तान के युवाओं के बीच में एक नई एस्पिरेशन खड़ी की, आशाएं आकांक्षाओं को बढ़ाने का आपने काम किया है और ये नया भारत जो है वो बहुत अलग सोचता है। इस न्यू इंडिया के लिए आप न्यू हीरोज हैं। राष्ट्रगान टोक्यो में बज रहा था, लेकिन 135 करोड़ भारतीयों का सिर गर्व के साथ हिंदुस्तान और दुनिया के अलग-अलग देशों में ऊंचा हो रहा था।
Well, these were just few of the top highlights on India's pathway to progress and success in the field of sports. However, this is just the beginning. With inauguration of more number of science centers, encouraging athletes to visit various schools for inculcating importance of sports in children and motivating the athletes irrespective of the fact whether they are medal winners or not. India is surely witnessing a new dawn in the sporting landscape across the country, and with consistent support of the Prime Minister along with the government. Sports Desk, DD India.
Well, BTS took center stage at the United Nations with over 1 million fans watching that event live. The boy band's performance there clearly, when one takes a look at the latest number, 6 lakh views on the last count. The boy band's 7 members accompanied the President Moon Jae-in from South Korea, who designated them as special presidential envoy for future generations and culture. Before we wind up news on the hour, let's take a look at their performance at the center stage of United Nations General Assembly, the K-pop band. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Take care.
When your heart says like a drum, beating louder with no way to guard it. When it all seems like it's wrong, say louder out of joy to that feeling we're just getting started.